Great. Fantastic. Love it. Awesome. Well, we'll just go ahead and get started. We do have a lot of content to cover today. Just first off, wanted to say hello and welcome to every one of you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on tonight's VPSA chat. And of course, my name is Bang Ko. You may see my name as Bang Company. Whatever. Yeah. So proudly serving as your VPSA, and I'll be moderating tonight's discussion. And of course, tonight's discussion is on chapter operations during COVID-19. So with everything that's going on and all the changes that are happening, I'm sure you all have a lot of questions and are seeking clarity on how you can continue to serve and how you can continue to lead as a chapter. So we've brought together a few local experts to share their knowledge and their insights on some key and integral op pieces. Before we get into the main part, I did want to give our panelists a chance to introduce themselves. So let's go ahead and kick it off with our VPCM.
Hi, everybody. If I haven't had the opportunity to meet you, my name is Jessica Lee, and I'm your National Vice President for Colonization and Membership. In my professional life, I am a Director of Curriculum and Instruction for a 3A school district in Central Texas. As I will give the general warning, in every Zoom call I'm in, I have two children, Jackson and the human tornado, AKA Emerson Jean Lee. They may make an appearance on this call. Emmy thinks every Zoom call is an opportunity for her to say hello to everyone. So excited to see such a great turnout tonight, and hopefully we can answer your questions.
Fantastic. All right, let's go next to our VPPR.
Hello, I'm Tony Falcone, National Vice President for Professional Relations. That job, if you don't know all the council jobs, I work directly mostly with band directors and sponsors and relate with them with things that the council's doing. I also have a big hand with my counterpart at TBS in the National Intercollegiate Band, so that'll be rolling around next summer. In my professional life, I'm the Associate Director of Bands at the University of Nebraska. I direct the Cornhusker Marching Band there, and I've been chapter sponsor of Epsilon Omega since 2002. And previous to this position, I was governor in the Midwest District for 12 years.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tony. And next to our VPP.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Napolitano, National Vice President for Programs. In my daytime job, I am the Assistant Director of Music for Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York. I pretty much manage the faculty and student enrollment for a local liberal arts college in Poughkeepsie. Prior to being VPP, I served as Northeast District Governor, also as Chair of the Alumni Association Board of Directors, and was a chapter sponsor for our local chapter at Marist College for 14 years.
Great, thank you so much, Mikey. And next to one of our past VPCAs, or VPSAs, wow. And then I told you guys I'm all nervous tonight. And she also sat on the Alumni Board of Directors as well. Kelly?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Nellis, and as Bong said, I passed VPSA and past Alumni Board of Directors member. So in my daytime, I am a senior technical business analyst. I work for a healthcare pharmacy benefit management company, and I work with APIs and UI development. And I'm here today to be as a member of the election committee that was spun up to help guide you through virtual elections.
Great. Thank you so much for that. All right, panelists, so before we get into our questions, I did want to remind the audience, as you're jumping in, if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and mute yourselves and then go ahead and put some introduction information into the chat, your name, your college, your chapter. And we are also recording this call, so if you're not comfortable with having your face on the recording, go ahead and turn off your camera as well. And the way this is going to work is some of the questions that you guys have put in advance, submitted in advance, we're going to be going through that, and some of the questions kind of touch on the same topic or basically the same. So our panelists are going to speak on those details. And once we get through that, I'll open up the floor for questions. So start thinking about what other questions you might have as you're listening through. All right, so my first question for our panelists here, how should chapters handle third degree?
Hi, this is a question that I've responded to quite a bit, as you can imagine. We did release some COVID-19 guidance. Currently, the council is in the process of creating a page on our website for all of the COVID-19 guidance as you're working remotely. So be looking for that as we're in the process of building that site and putting or a page on our website where we can put all of those resources in one spot. If you're in the process of membership education, hopefully you're still continuing that digitally. And if you need assistance with how to go about that digitally, if you email curriculum@kksci.org, the curriculum committee, or myself, who also sits on that committee, we can help support you in transitioning to a digital format. But regarding third degree, if you have not seen the guidance that we have put out there, what we have asked you to do as chapters is once you have finished all of your education classes, once you're done with your Road to Wisdom, then we're asking you to vote to initiate and to complete the initiate registration online. And so what happens then? One of the questions that we got in is, what do we consider these individuals? And what I will say is, once you vote, because the National Constitution requires a vote to initiate, that when you do that vote to initiate, once you finish the classes, then consider them full brothers in full standing. There is no, do not treat them as candidates, do not treat them as anything less than a brother in full standing, which means they have all rights and privileges as a brother. Regarding third degree, we don't want to encourage you to do a digital ritual. It does not have the same impact. What I do encourage is to go through the pertinent and relevant information of third degree with your candidates, however you decide to do that, in a secure environment, whether that's a phone call or whatever, but please do not do a virtual ritual. What you can do is you can reach out to me directly, and my email is jessicalee@kksci.org, and I am happy to do a third degree workshop for your chapter that I've developed specifically for this situation, and where I go through everything that's relevant. Since I do have access to a ritual book, and many of you right now may not have that access. We want you to be able to, the first thing you guys do whenever your chapter is able to get back together physically, is to do that degree then. For some of you, this is second and third degree. And I also want to offer up that if you need me to go through second and third degree with your candidates, with your chapter, I'm happy to do that as well. But we don't want to withhold any information from the candidates. We don't want to treat them as if they're still a candidate. We want to initiate them. And the reasoning behind that is we don't want to punish the candidates for a global pandemic that they had absolutely no control over. We want to give them the grace and the space to be brothers now, because that's what they deserve. And so while this is not our typical operations, this is not what we would typically recommend. It is what's in the best interest of our candidates and our brand new brothers. So making sure that you go through that information, reach out to me for help, and know that one of the first things you're going to want to do in the fall is to do that physical degree, so they get to go through it and have that meaningful experience.
Awesome, thank you so much. And we have some other questions that that go along with third degree and with ritual. And again, we'll tie that up, but we also want to make sure we're touching other topics here. So I'll transition over to this question for Tony and for anybody else who serves as a chapter sponsor or advises a chapter. So as chapter sponsor, what are you telling your chapter and the members during these uncertain times where there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of changes? What are you telling your chapter members?
Our chapter was in a kind of a fortunate place. Our intake happens at a different time than most chapters. We don't have a fall and a spring. We start we do one per year and started in late fall. It carries over the break into early spring. And we actually finished our third degree on the Sunday before our university shut down on Monday. So we were able to get everything in, get all the fees in, get all the signatures and everything done. So we were really fortunate for that. So the only bit of business that we have for the rest of our semester is elections and officer transitions, and we'll be talking about those with everybody. My main role, more as a band director and as a chapter sponsor, but just kind of shepherding all of the band students and including the chapter, is just to touch in with them. I don't want to be a pest, but I try to a few times a week check in with them, make sure they're doing okay. I've encouraged them to share their stories. We have a Facebook group for the marching band, and they've shared some of their stories, things they've struggled with, things that they've done that they're proud of, and everybody seems to be able to rally around those. It really helps people, I think, to know that some of the feelings that we have of being frustrated, of being frightened, of trying to deal with schoolwork in a completely different way, with teachers delivering it in a completely different way that they've never been trained to do. It really creates a lot of anxiety, and just to touch base with everybody and say, look, our first job is to make sure we're okay. And then our second job is to do the best we can with this until we get on the other side of it. And that's really kind of how I've seen my role. I've been communicating with our chapter officers on email and texting and things like that, just to make sure I'm kept up on what they're doing. We're also fortunate that in our chapter we have 2 district officers, so they're pretty squared away with knowing what to do and how to do it. And we're a little bit different from that respect as well.
Great, thank you so much. Anybody else on the panel would like to add to that? What about maybe chapters that don't have that good or strong of a relationship with their sponsors? Any words of advice?
Yeah, one of the things that I will recommend is, one, make sure that you're looking out for guidance from the university. Sometimes what you see as your standard chapter operating procedure is totally going to be thrown out the window, and your institutions may have guidance on how to conduct meetings. They may have some mental health and wellness check-ins with you all to make sure that you are safe and healthy. They may have platforms for you for chapter elections. They may be offering free Zoom accounts or WebEx accounts. Those things that the university may give you to support you to make your life a little bit easier during this trying time. So you can focus on trying to build fellowship in this strange distant setting.
Great. Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you so much, Mikey. So transitioning from chapter sponsors and from the ritual piece, we're going to move to chapter elections and chapter votes, something that we've been getting a lot of questions on as well. And we're going to turn this over to Mikey and Kelly. I think they have some slides they wanted to share with you all. And
Absolutely. So Kelly and I have been kind of coordinating the efforts of the volunteer corps of people that are crafting the guidance for chapter elections at this point. And I'd say probably since the virtual district convention seasons have started, Kelly and I have probably met with probably close to a dozen chapters. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, we found that there are some things that, regardless of the virtual environment, even if we were meeting in person, there are some good guidance that we can provide to each chapter in making sure that your elections are fair and safe. So oddly enough, in this weird virtual environment, in this weird setting, it's given us a unique opportunity to kind of give out some advice and to give out some guidelines. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen.
you should be able to now.
Okay. So in the guidance, and Kelly, jump in whenever you feel it. As we were crafting this out, we actually have a 20-page document, and I know that it's really wordy and verbose. So here are some summary slides to help us get through some of the best practices at this point. And I'm not going to go through all of the slides with you because this is about 18 slides. So I'm going to hit on some major points. And we are going to make these slides available to the people that are on the call, and also get the slides and the full document up on our resources page once it's built. So So many of us have actually had that weird experience where running a chapter election on campus is kind of scary and difficult. And it doesn't always have to be. So what our team has come up with guidance on is sponsor and director involvement, creating a good timeline for your nominations and election process, what the nominations process could look like, what you might want to provide for materials, how to facilitate interview and discussions, and some basic parliamentary procedure. Some of those basic nuts and bolts are things that we've been finding have been missing. So this is a good time for us to shore up some of that foundation. So before moving forward, again, check with your institution. Your student affairs office may already have platforms in place. I've seen some of the larger institutions, their student affairs offices have virtual election platforms, and they may have some requirements on how to conduct and report your results. So check with them before you start to go and investigate other options. Sometimes the quickest bet is the one that they have for you. Involve your sponsor. Please keep your sponsor and directors involved. This is just like any other chapter operations. Keep them in the loop. They can ensure a safe environment. They can assist in clarifying candidate eligibility. And they can serve as a voice of reason if the meetings go off the rails. Some of us, I know when I was inactive, I sat through those 6-7 hour election meetings. They don't need to be that dicey. Keep your sponsor involved. They can help you keep everything on track. We're recommending these process unfold in 3 sessions. 3 meetings, not necessarily if you have to do successive weeks, by all means, but make that timeline appropriate for you. And in that first meeting, we're saying this should be nominations. The second meeting should be interviews and discussion. And the third meeting should be the concluding discussion and your actual vote. Before your nominations meeting, send the chapter officer list. Make sure that everybody in the chapter understands what the duties and responsibilities for each office are. And your incumbent officers should make themselves available to answer any questions about what they do. During the meeting, the nominating meeting, you're only going to nominate the eligible members for office. That process unto itself can be a little bit long and drawn out. So we're not recommending that you have the discussion at the same time as the full nomination. And then before your next meeting, send a list of those that have been nominated so that candidates can prepare their materials and prep for any discussion that's happening forward. In here, we'll talk about the difference between floor nominations and committee nominations. Most of us, the most familiar method is the floor nomination, where you've nominated somebody for a position that's eligible to hold that position off the floor. And then some larger chapters run with nominations committee, where the committee will determine eligibility and cast a slate of eligible candidates and who they believe should be fitting which office. If the committee decides that they're going to host virtual interviews, it's recommended that they record those interviews to share with any committee member that can't attend. That's only if you're doing a nominations committee. There are some practices that we're going to talk about and touch on in a second about what you're going to do with officer candidates in a virtual setting for those that have been nominated off the floor. In terms of the materials that you want to prepare, you can ask for a letter of intent for a specific office, letters of support from your membership and your advisors, a list of goals and how they plan to execute them, a platform statement and a vision for their term in office, and a resume demonstrating their relevant experience. Once you've compiled all of that as the candidate, you should be willing to share that, whether it's through Google Drive or Microsoft Teams or OneDrive or Dropbox. Some universities have online space repositories to keep that information. But what you want to do is make sure that you create essentially a folder for people to access so that they can look at what your candidates are providing in terms of vision. Then we move on to the interview and discussion. Now, it's recommended that it's following nominations so that you're not making that 7-hour meeting. Candidate materials you should have been able to access prior. And then the nominated candidates can be interviewed together in front of a voting body. Kind of like a moderated town hall is what we're recommending. We have gotten some great feedback from chapters that are using Zoom as one of their platforms, where if they have a smaller number of candidates and they want to make effective use of time, they can break out candidates into breakout rooms so that they're not present for Q&A sessions for the other candidates. But for larger chapters that have several candidates running for one position, we're recommending a moderated town hall kind of forum where everybody will be nominated with the same questions, and they can provide their own independent answers in front of the full voting body.
And I think that's the other main part of it, just because it is something that way it's part of that fair and balanced election. So it's not just to save time, it's also to create a fairness amongst everybody, and there isn't extra questions being asked towards one person or less towards another.
And we also encourage, if you do have a sponsor or director that's involved in this process, they can be the moderator, they can be the voice of reason, and they can ensure that some of these questions that are being asked are fair, that sometimes some of that social dynamic comes into play into elections. They can help tone that down. Moving on to some of the things for voting. Some chapters have great nomination and discussion procedures already in place. So we're saying, let's figure out a way that for those chapters that don't even have those mechanics down, to keep a formal process living through this virtual environment. This may seem basic, but some chapters don't understand some of these terms, what a motion or a second is. A motion is a proposal for the entire membership to act on. You say, I move, not I motion to. A second is somebody else that's in the voting delegation can agree to the motion on the floor. Abstaining. Now, we found that there are some chapters that don't know what an abstention is. When
This
a member
is
is
my favorite
present,
subject, I'm not going to lie.
it brings about the most unique discussion when we've been meeting with chapters, and hopefully we can put some finality to what this means. A member is present, but they don't cast a ballot. It's highly discouraged unless the member has like a unique conflict of interest with the candidates. The reason being is the number of abstentions is subtracted from your total number of eligible voters. So it changes what that majority is to reach that threshold to get your 50% plus one. So the more people that abstain from a vote means that you're actually giving away your voice. You don't want your voice to be heard. And in a candidate election process, it's important that every voice be heard. So we've got an example. If there's a 20-member chapter, that simple majority is 11. But if there are 4 abstentions, that majority then goes to 9, that simple majority. So keep in mind when you're looking at votes, as a member, maybe not as a candidate, as a member, ask the questions. Make sure that you know exactly what you're voting on and who you're voting for, so that you are best represented by those people in office. A vote of no confidence is completely different, right? The member is present, but doesn't have confidence that any of the nominated candidates are fit to serve. That no confidence vote is included in the total. So the abstention lowers the voting threshold, but the no vote says, yes, count my vote. My vote is they stink. So voting members make every effort to make an educated vote on their potential officers, take advantage and constantly review those materials, because now in this virtual environment, it's at your fingertips. Make an informed decision.
And can I, hold on, Mikey,
Yep.
part of the whole thing with abstentions and the no confidence voting, but more on the abstention line that we're highlighting it, is it's also a privilege of membership for everybody to be able to vote. And so when you decide that it's too difficult, or somebody in the chapter looks at it and says that they're not sure, that isn't in the best interest of the chapter, but it also is throwing away part of their entitlement as a chapter member. So always encouraging them, and if they're not sure, they get to ask the questions. And if members are also saying they just don't have enough information, and the discussion floor is closed, then recommending that they vote in the best interest of the chapter, rather than at their best conscience for what they have. So there's a lot of different ways to prevent abstentions, and you're not going to always prevent them, but there's some good tools for that.
Use your voice because you have it. Moving into the actual balloting process. If you've been involved, or if you sat as a delegate in the district elections, you saw a platform rolled out that was called Election Runner. And Election Runner is fantastic. However, if you have more than 20 members in your chapter that can cast votes, Election Runner is not free. It costs $15 per election. So if you have 5 officers that are running for office and 5 ballots that need to be cast, you're looking at putting out some of your chapter money to do something that we can hopefully give you for free. So we've crafted a Google ballot, a Google form that gives you the opportunity to scale to whatever number of offices that you have. In doing that, we do want to explain what ranked choice voting is. We did this on the district level for voting for your district officers, and bringing it down to a chapter level. It's just a voting method that allows voters to rank candidates in order of preference. The process unfolds for single winner elections, meaning your number of choices matches the number of candidates. You put them in order of preference, and the people that are essentially below that threshold of majority are eliminated, and those that remain are eligible for further runoff. And then you'll look at the back end and count all of those results to see exactly who gets the total number of first choice preference votes. If a candidate wins an outright majority in the first preference votes, they'll be declared the winner. If not, then you just keep pairing off those people that are trailing off. What we are going to do, because I know that we want to make sure that we touch on other topics, we did create a kkpsi.org email address for specific guidance, so that we can share with you the Google form that was created so that you can duplicate it and test it before your chapter elections. And we can go through all of these other touch points in terms of guidance on the before the ballots are even cast. So if you contact elections@kkpsi.org, Kelly or I will be first on the line to get those, and we can set up time to meet with you. Generally in about a half-hour session, we're able to get everything out that we need to get out for you. So thanks for your time. Cal, if you have anything to add, I'm going to throw it back to Bong.
Nope, that sounds good.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for that. So of course, that's a lot of information. That's a lot of details there to really digest in just one sitting. So again, please do reach out. They're here to help you and assist you through this process. Mikey and Kelly, what about chapter voting in general?
So chapter voting in general can also be, depends on what the ability, I guess, what the kind of vote it is, depending on valid vote or voice voting or hand votes. So I think you still have the opportunity to get fair voting via the virtual, similarly to how you would do either a voice vote or a hands up vote, eyes open vote in chapter meeting. So those are still ability that you have within your, within, I guess, the virtual chat. There's also polls, is my understanding, with Zoom that you can utilize in addition to just creating a Google form similar to what we have and have everybody going and filling it out. So we still encourage you to keep your business moving. We still encourage you to keep moving forward, but just be mindful of privacy and what people have, and whether it should be ballot or not. And then, but you can kind of keep moving the way it would be if you were all in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if the vote gets a little bit too difficult to acknowledge or maintain, to track who's doing what, especially in those kind of hand raise votes where you're looking at the grid, you may want to just change it up to do a roll call vote so that you can document who's got what vote. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, for anybody, any chapters out there, chapter leaders, if you have further questions or specific situations that you're kind of thinking of or that has happened in the past and you want clarification on, please reach out to elections@kkpsi.org for further guidance on that. Okay, great. So now it's just some general questions that we've seen a lot as well with everything going on. What are some ways that we can utilize social media, you can utilize technology to keep brothers involved and engaged? Any thoughts on that, panelists?
I feel like you should answer that one, Bonko.
Me? Oh, okay. Whew, did not prepare. Okay, so anyways, I do know that our National Communications Committee, and we have some smaller subcommittees that have kind of, just based on the ideas that our students have brought to us. From, I think, Jillian from the Southeast, she brought together an idea from her home chapter of Couchella, And that is something that it's a series of events that chapters are driving their members to, just to stay connected, just to stay involved with different activities. I know there are LAAs out there utilizing Zoom to do I don't know, game night. You can play Cards Against Humanity online now, I guess. I don't know. You can, I don't know, there's just different ways you can utilize these game systems that you can just utilize just to bond. Other than that, I think that Zoom obviously is a great way to stay connected. There's different apps out there that you can utilize. And I did want to make a point as well, I forgot to, when we were talking about the election pieces, that Marco and I are finalizing a request form. If you guys need a Zoom meeting link set for a meeting or some sort of function, we'll be releasing that form out to you all so that you can utilize Zoom. But in general, utilizing social media, a lot of chapters have been putting those templates together, like tag a brother who inspires me, tag a brother who's doing, who I miss the most. There's been lots of music collaboration online as well. So I'm just sort of thinking off the top of my head, kind of put in the spot here. So thanks, Jess. Any other great ideas from our panelists?
I will jump in. I just know that we have talked about this and you've had good things to say and you never talk. So anyway, one of the things that I was thinking about that kind of echoes what Tony said earlier is it doesn't have to be about business right now. And I think that as chapters, we want to still continue to do our regular meetings and talk about business, and it's okay to not do that. It's okay to have a chapter meeting that's just a chapter check-in. The most important thing that you can be doing right now is taking care of your health, physically and mentally. So whatever y'all want to do as far as that operational piece, right now we don't have band. You're not doing that traditional service. So to me, the best service that you can provide is the opportunity to take care of one another. So don't feel pressured to have a chapter meeting every week. Maybe you're checking in every 2 weeks now, or you don't have to have that traditional chapter meeting. It could be call it a chapter check-in or some other fun name. But don't forget, the reason we have a fraternity is because we have a brotherhood. We have relationships. We're about people. So don't hesitate to check in on a brother you haven't heard from in a while. Don't hesitate to understand if somebody's not going to be on a call, because right now life is hard. And so I just encourage y'all to lean on one another, to celebrate the small joys, and don't focus as much on the business right now. Focus on each other.
Animal Crossing, that was my answer, sorry. I know, I told my mother, I was like, yeah, I'm catching up with friends on Animal Crossing. We're playing on each other's islands. And she's like, that's whack. And it's whatever, it's fun. So there's just lots of different ways that you can, some people are highlighting their musical abilities. Some people are just being creative. Like, we're all creative people, it's great. And it's a great time to just connect in that way as well. It's a very confusing time. There's lots of anxiety, lots of fear going around. So, if you're feeling that way, I'm sure someone else is as well. Mikey, I think he has something to say. He unmuted.
One of the thing that really unites us is music, right? So I saw in the chat, there's one chapter that's doing Netflix parties. You can do that with musicals, with live concerts, things like that are going on. Create Spotify playlists to share with each other of music that kind of either amps you up or inspires you or keeps you together. Things that remind each other of each other. Like, I teach a class actually on popular music. And I know that there's some people like, why popular music? But there are some unifying themes. So one of the assignments that I've given to my class just in this week is to create a Spotify playlist across different genres of music that inspires you, just so that you can share in each other's interests, but you're still listening to music. Keep that component going, because that's the thing that keeps us as a fraternity.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, as we continue to go through this, and each day seems like a new challenge. Each day seems like a new adventure. So if you have ideas, please reach out to any of us. The national communications team is very open and receptive to different ideas. We want to be able to leverage your creativity. So if you are having success, I'm sure we could leverage that and help another chapter, help another area connect as well. So please do reach out with any of your ideas. So the next question, we're going to shift a bit here, involves our graduating seniors. So this has been particularly tough on those who are leaving their campus, who are heading into the real world. So what advice do you have for chapters? Any good ideas, any tips on how they can send off their seniors? Jessica, I'll put you on the spot.
It's about to unmute, Brother Co. I think this is the piece that really breaks my heart for those of you that are seniors on the call. It really, my heart just breaks for you, because everything that you were expecting this semester to be, it's not. And I hate that for you. Getting emotional. Sorry, it's been a rough week for me. We had to put my poor dog down on Monday, so I'm a little sad this week. But it's so hard. So think about the ways that you can honor one another and celebrate and take the time to make it great. This can be an opportunity as a chapter that you can still serve your band. Think about all of your band seniors and take the time to make short videos about each one of them, or to put something together on social media to be able to put things out there about them. Contact your local newspapers where your university is and see if they'll feature something about the seniors that you have in the band. So this can be an opportunity not just to highlight your chapter seniors, but your band seniors, and still provide a great service to your band program. But I've seen some great, just like, plain posts where they've taken a picture and put some information about the person. You could put together, a video of all of your band seniors and all your chapter seniors with their pictures. I think that there's a lot of different things that you can do social media wise, but also think about what you can do outside the box. Maybe it's sending, as a chapter, everybody mails handwritten letters to that senior about what that senior means to them. Sometimes that personal touch, something that's not digital, but something that's personal, have everybody in the chapter write a letter and include a photo, and everybody send it to that person. Maybe the chapter can work together on a scrapbook digitally that you can give that person. I think there's, you can be really creative about this and honoring that person, but I also think it's an opportunity that you could serve your band too.
And Jessica, one of the things that I think both of you and I and everybody else on the council has seen is our seniors just don't feel like they're done yet. This was taken from them so quickly, and nobody prepares you for that. And one of the things that they're not done with is sharing themselves, sharing their leadership, and sharing their passion with the rest of the chapters and with the rest of the band. But now we have this really unique opportunity to ask our seniors that are still with us, what advice can you share? You have now gone through such a strange time in our history. Share your story. Give us if I was a freshman coming in right now, what should I know? And how do I tell that? What's my best memory? And what's the advice I can give somebody coming into my band program that I'm not going to be able to see right now? And yes, Bong, wash your hands. Great advice. You have a really great opportunity right now to pass on wisdom in perpetuity, because the internet, everything that's on the internet lives forever. So this could be your lasting mark to do something really powerful and impactful to a whole generation of students that have never seen you now in person. So.
Awesome. Thank you both so much on that. So my last question before we open up the floor for other questions from the audience deals with registration, initiate registration fees and their signatures. How should chapters, students be going through this? What's the process?
There's a few options. One of the things that you might not be aware of, oh, I'm just looking at the chat and people are so sweet. One of the things that you might not be aware of is that our physical national headquarters right now is closed because of the shelter in place order that's in Stillwater. However, all of our headquarters staff are all working remotely. So if you go to our website or the KKSI TBS National Headquarters website, if one of my compadres would throw that link to the headquarters website in the chat, that'd be great. You can find all of the email addresses for all of our headquarters staff members. So if you have questions about anything related to the processing of those initiate forms, you're going to want to direct those questions to TJ Tooley. And his email is hqedu@kkytbs.org. And TJ really handles that initiate registration. You can also direct those questions to Di Spiva, who's our national accountant, if it's on the money side. So if it's a signature issue, you can talk to TJ about it. If it's a money issue, you can talk to Di. We can process credit cards over the phone. And as far as signatures are concerned, we still do need the regular signatures. You can do this through, correct me if I'm wrong, Bong, isn't it Adobe Sign that you can do that. We do have some options for how to go about that, and I've answered this in an email, and I'll be honest, I need to pull it up here in just a minute, so I'm telling you the correct thing. But the big thing is that we still do need actual signatures, and you still need to process it as normal. The one thing that I will tell you, which I know Tony has brought up before, is that please nudge your director of grants and sponsor to do their part once you've submitted the form. For some reason, the OMRS does not always prompt them. So if you complete something on your side, it might not be that they forgot, it might be literally that they don't know. And that includes any of our reports. Just a best practice is once you complete a form to email your director of grants and sponsor and say, I have completed the form and submitted it, please, if you can log in when you have a chance to be able to do your step. That will really help out your directors and sponsors and yourselves to make sure you don't get a late fee. We want those initiate registrations processed by May 15th. If at all possible. And if your chapter has some sort of extenuating circumstance, then please email me and TJ so that we can help you through that. The goal is to make sure that we have everything turned in a timely manner, because if you don't realize, your dues help pay the salaries of our headquarters staff. They help make the fraternity run. And we take the bulk of our initiations come in the spring. So it's important that those things happen in a timely manner.
Also, in doing that, make sure that once your initiate registration fees are paid, make sure that you're reporting your chapter elections, make sure that your officers are updated on the OMRS. You don't want to start your chapter summary report until all of those things are in line and done. Otherwise, if they're not updated, you're going to need to start over.
Mm-hmm.
I just found those directions. So if you download the summary page from the OMRS as a PDF, you can upload the file to like Dropbox or Google Drive. And then if you open it in Adobe Reader, you can use the fill and sign feature. I'm actually going to take these steps that TJ has emailed, and I'm going to throw these in the chat so everybody can see them. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Bob.
That's okay. And in addition to all of that, we also create these walkthrough videos for all of the reports. I work with the district officers in helping us fill the reports. The link that I just put on there, it's not a clickable link, but if you want to copy and paste that, it's on our YouTube page. And we talk about the steps that we got directly from Aaron and from Di and from the staff about how to go about your initiate registration signatures and your fees. So please feel free to watch and go through any of these report walkthroughs. The most important thing is that you are sending your monies and your report in together so that they're not being mismatched, misplaced. So again, any further questions, please do reach out. We want to make sure that we do help you with this, but I want to make sure we get to some of your questions as well. So I'm going to open up the floor for questions from our audience. And how it's going to work is you're going to ask the question, and maybe one or two of the panelists will answer your question, and then we'll move on to the next one, just to make sure that we do get through that. I see a couple of raised hands, so let's go to Jessica Needham.
Hey, so my question is, as a nonprofit, we aren't really supposed to like make money each year. So for chapters who find themselves with a very large or unexpected surplus in funds due to various projects not being completed, what are some smart ways that we can use this money to fulfill our purposes?
Great
That's
question.
a great question. That's really a great question. I would, right now, when you are in a time that you are not physically in person, I would not touch your money. That is just a best practice right now, because with everybody not being together, there's a lot of ways that things can go wrong very quickly. And I just being honest, chapter embezzlement is actually a common problem. So I would not touch your money right now. What I would say is now is the perfect time to plan and prepare. I would totally create a specific chapter meeting where you are setting goals and really including your director of bands and your sponsor in that meeting, so that you can talk about what are some projects that they think will benefit the band. Because what you think the band needs as a chapter may not be what the band needs. An example that I always give was my university is a small university in Pennsylvania, Lock Haven, very small band program, and we had a percussion ensemble, but none of it was funded by the university. So all of the music our band director bought with his own money, and he never told us, but we found out one day when he made a joke when somebody wrote on the music, and so we as a chapter took over buying that music. So there may be a need that you're not even aware of that could be fulfilled, but I would really make a plan for how to use that money, and unless your director of bands or your sponsor, unless there's an immediate need, I really recommend that you don't touch it until you're able to be together in person again.
And one of the things to think about is right now, when you break for summer, some of you actually work all summer long to pay for your dues in the fall. If you're still sheltered at home and you don't have that opportunity, this gives you an opportunity for the chapter to support some of those brothers that may not have those financial means start the fall.
Great. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so Sarah, we'll go with Sarah from Muzai.
Hi, so I was wondering, obviously in normal circumstances, once we submit the initiate dues and everything, we would normally get membership pins in the mail. So we were wondering whether or not that's still happening and how it will happen. Go ahead.
Great question. I asked about this because I had no idea what the answer was. So the answer is the pens will not be mailed out until fall. And yes, it will not be mailed out until fall. And so we're going to keep the university address to just make sure that rather than sending it out all over the world, we're just going to send it to one place. There will be a delay, but it will all be safely packaged at your band wherever your mail goes. Great.
And the reasoning for that is we don't want to send something now and God knows where it will end up in your university mail system. I don't even want to think about it. So because we had a huge issue when we had to mail ritual books, it was a legitimate nightmare. And things got lost all over the place, even when we used the correct address. So we just want to make sure that y'all actually get the materials and that we are doing our process to make sure it goes the way that it usually would, which is to go to the chapter and not to individuals, because that also will put an extraordinary strain on our headquarters when it's postage that we haven't budgeted for, if we're sending that to everybody across the country, if that makes sense.
Yep, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right, Anthony from SED.
Hello. So, quick question about OMRS and how everything is being processed through there. I know my chapter has seen it, and talking to a few other people, some other chapters have seen it as well. We've paid for everything. and we've submitted everything, and we have an earlier process date of the payment, but on OMRS it still states pending processing of fees, but that was taken care of a long time ago and it's acknowledged in OMRS. So who should we direct those questions to? Because we've got every step completed.
I would probably send an email to Debbie Morris, and we'll get her email and throw that in the chat, because Debbie is one that usually processes that. You can also reach out to Aaron Moore because he does a lot of the back processing. One of the things that has impacted our operations is obviously we don't have everybody going into the office every day. So they may just not be doing that clearing out in the OMRS as frequently as they typically would, because they actually have a system of who was going into the office. And like many businesses, there's a system of who collects deposits, who takes deposits to the bank, and all that kind of stuff. And right now, usually that would just happen in sync. Now that's happening depending on what day it is. So our office people aren't having contact. So if you email Debbie, she would be the one that usually clears those things out. Aaron Moore is also a great person. If any OMRS question, I go to Aaron Moore. Aaron is the one that does all of the back end stuff for us on the OMRS. If there's a glitch, a programming issue, Aaron knows the system better than anybody in the fraternity. So I would reach out to him.
Thank you so much. Like I said, I just wanted to ask because we know that we have to have all that taken care of before we can start the summary reports. So that's why I brought it up.
Great question. Thank you so much. All right, awesome. So now, let me see. I see Jessica's hand, but let me see if anybody else. All right, Jessica, what's up?
Hey, sorry, it took me a second to get unmuted. Earlier in the chat, we kind of discussed what our relationships with our sponsor and director bands kind of looks like in this process. And I just want to know if y'all could kind of expound about like what should a chapter do during this time if like before all of this, our relationship with our sponsor was just like very hands off and even at times kind of tense.
Tony Falcone.
Yeah, I don't know that I got a really good answer because this situation is just going to make that worse. It's kind of hard. All you can really do is reach out. And Jessica's suggestion about reaching out ahead of time with some of the forms that have to be done is a great suggestion. One thing that band directors really don't like is being caught by surprise with stuff. So if you've told them a week in advance or so, hey, this is coming your way, all you have to do is click approve, then they'll be more likely to help you out. One thing about the chapter summary report that you might not realize, and this is as a sponsor for a lot of years has been one of my not pet peeves, but just something I like to kind of harp on. There's a big field in that report that the sponsor fills out that's basically it's a cheerleader endorsement letter for your chapter. So give them a specific heads up about that because you want them working ahead of time. It used to be, in fact, in the days before the OMRS, it was a recommendation letter. You wrote a separate letter on letterhead and submitted it along as part of the report. And if you want them to do a good job on this, and you do, give them a heads up, tell them it's in there. It just needs to be a few paragraphs, how things look from their standpoint, and they can say, you know, here's some things I really want to work on, here's some things they did really well, that kind of stuff. But if you want that done well, just give them a heads up. I wrote an article about some of this stuff that was in the last podium, and one of my big points in there was, again, directors don't like to be taken by surprise. They don't want to be last minuted on something. So the more notice you can give them, the better.
I always recommend whenever chapters kind of have some sort of director sponsor issues is sometimes it's about finding the right person in the chapter to make the connection. If you have someone in the chapter that's in their ensemble that they interact with regularly, that could be the person to start the relationship. That person doesn't have to be the chapter president or even a chapter officer, but maybe you just need someone that already has an existing relationship in another way with the director or sponsor to say, hey, you know, right now with things working remotely, one of our focus areas is improving that relationship, or we really want to keep you in the loop. You know, we'd like to send you the Zoom call links, even if you don't see anything. We just want you to be a part of the meeting to listen if you're available to. And I think that this is an opportunity to rebuild a relationship. This could be an opportunity to let the sponsor of the DOB know that they're wanted. I had a DOB sponsor who was really hands off with us, and he was one of those, when you need me, reach out to me, otherwise I'm going to let you guys do your thing. And so he was always really surprised when we invited him to meetings, because he was like, well, do you need me? We're like, no, we just want you to be there. But he took that to heart, and not saying that every director will, because every DOB and sponsor deals and works with their chapters differently, and that just may not be the case. You may never get your DOB depending on the size of your program, and it might just be your sponsor. I think the thing is to don't stop reaching out. Don't stop making the offer. Continually make the effort. We also don't know what pressures and things your DOB and sponsor is dealing with that you have no idea. And so even if they can't make something right now, that doesn't mean that they can't make something later. So I would keep the communication very strong right now. Copy them, send them all of your chapter minutes, invite them to your digital meetings, really keep that communication strong, and continue to make the invitation.
Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. So we are coming up on time. I know we have 2 questions left, so I want to make sure that we do cover these 2 questions. If you need to go, that's totally okay. But I do want to get to Austin and then to Mike.
Hey there. So I wanted to ask, I think we're all in the sort of mindset that everything is temporary right now, and we're getting through the summer and planning to go in the fall, but a realistic probability is we might even be doing this going into the fall. So what advice can you give to chapters to prepare for that in case that does happen, with, of course, marching bands, how they might be delayed or be pushed back, all those sorts of ideas?
I think the reality of the situation is that there's already I literally just read an article before this meeting that there's already universities doing that, and delaying till the spring. And that's really difficult. That's really difficult to think about when it's so far off. From my perspective, from my office, excuse me, one of the things that I've been thinking about in kind of game planning is, what would a completely virtual membership education process look like? From virtual recruitment to initiation. And that's one of the things that I've talked to the curriculum committee about, is standing up resources for you all to be able to engage in for a completely virtual process, so that you can still do your membership education and still have that experience. Because in my mind, if you're still having class, that means you can still take members, as long as your university will allow it. So that's one piece. The other piece that directly relates to my office is CFR visits. We did have to cancel the rest of the in-person visits for the spring for Nicole and Justin. And so for the fall, for CFR visits, they've been doing some digital virtual visits right now. Some of you on the call may have experienced that. We're looking at refining what a virtual visit would look like in the event that your university is still closed. So as an organization, we're already trying to think ahead. We were able to come up with a pretty solid plan for the virtual conventions pretty quickly, and had to do something in a way that we never had to do before. And so we actually have some time now to think, because the reality is this may affect some chapters, but not all. There's areas of the country that are much harder hit. You know, the reality for New York may be very different than the reality for our schools in Montana. And so we're thinking about that as well, that we're going to have different parts of the country that are going to be dealing with different things. Other Mike may or Tony may want to jump in if they have something, or Bong, something else about sort of your chapter operational things. But what I would say is, as a chapter, I don't think that this is a bad time to utilize the summer to prepare for that in the event that you may have to continue to go remote. And the other thing I would say is as you have specific questions about remote chapter operations that we might not have thought of, please email us. If you email council@kkci.org, that goes to the entire National Council. And so those questions are really helpful because it lets us know what we need to create to help support you in those operations.
Anything to add for anybody else? I think the biggest takeaway that I really got from that, you know, it was a lot to unpack, right? Because we don't know. I think the biggest takeaway for me is continue to have these conversations, like what will things look like, and just keep people in the loop. Kind of going off of what Tony said earlier, just in general, I don't think anybody really likes these surprises. So I think just having these conversations and keeping people in the loop is going to be really, really important. So do leverage your chapter officers, your district governors, of course, your national council. So we'll transition to Mike. What's your question?
Hello, everybody. So this is a VPM question. So when Sarah asked about pins, that just jogged my memory on mine, was at third degree, usually that's on like a regular process. That's when our membership, our MCs and such would receive their first set of letters. So now having them I just finished my last lesson of them. So having going through their thing and getting their full like brother membership, are they allowed to wear regalia and stuff like that? And also it is, I would like to hear your guidance on projects and tasks, like such as interviews and like portfolio projects and stuff, how that should go. Because right now fall is kind of my saving grace here about having them do. So whatever you guys say about like when I should have due date to do, I'm definitely gonna give them more time, definitely.
Great questions, Mike. A few things. So there's kind of two different points depending on when your chapter does these things. Either when you vote as a chapter to initiate, if you finish your classes and that's when you're doing your vote, then they are full brothers. They get all rights and privileges. Or some chapters do that vote a little bit sooner in the process, and they might do it towards the end, but not at the very end. Whenever you are saying, yes, you've completed anything, yes, you are a brother, we're filling out the paperwork. They are a brother, period, which means they get all rights and privileges. I would not have any membership education activities continue to the fall. So if you were doing a service project or a fundraiser, if they were in the middle of something that needs to continue to be completed, for example, I had a chapter that reached out and they were in the process of redoing a podium. Then my response to them was, this just becomes a chapter service project and y'all finish it when you get back. Everybody finishes it together. If they have not finished, if they didn't get a chance to do a service project or a fundraiser at all, the whole goal of that is to teach them how to do it. So they're brothers now, so they'll just learn when you do that process. We don't want any membership education activities within the Road to Wisdom to continue once they're made a brother, because we don't want that feeling of being a candidate to continue. We want to treat them exactly like they are a regular brother. In the case of the portfolio project, there's no reason why you can't give them more time right now to complete that. And what I've recommended is that you can do a virtual reveal, and that can be done over a Zoom call where every candidate presents their portfolio project, or you can ask the candidates to create a video of them going through their project, and then y'all could put them all in a Google Drive or something. But there's no reason why that piece can't be finished. Where the other two requirements, those are just your chapter operational things. So I would not put that as a burden on them that the class needs to complete. Those are things that I would just waive. And hopefully that answers your questions. Like once y'all vote and you make them brothers, they need to be wearing letters, wearing pins. They are full straight brothers.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you.
Just keep in mind, some of the vendors that make those things may not be open right now.
Gotcha.
So you may have to be a little bit patient with them as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you to our panelists. If you are on this call, if you got a takeaway from this, please do reach out to our panelists. Send them a thank you. Send them your questions as well. And as we move forward, this call, it is recorded, so it's going to be on our YouTube page and our Facebook page as well. Next week, for any of you who are graduating seniors or just curious about how to stay involved, how to stay engaged as an alumni, we do have another VPSA chat next Monday with another group of panelists. So please attend, or at least share that with your graduating seniors. Maybe that's a great way to help them find some closure and just to stay involved, to stay engaged. Just wanted to say thank you to all of you. These are definitely scary times. And the fact that you're still engaged, that you're still here, I mean, it just means so much to all of us. The fact that you're still asking questions, that you are here, you are, really digging deep into your values, and just, you're here to serve. And that is just incredible, so incredible to see. So as we're going through this and you have questions or the information that we've covered, if you want to see it in a certain format, like slides, a booklet, whatever it is, please let us know. We want to make sure that we cover everything that we can. Now, we still have lives to live, so I'm not going to go crazy, but, just let us know how we can best serve you, and we'll do our best. So thank you all so much, and we will see you hopefully next Monday, if not sooner. And then we also have our do people know the name yet? We have our super big workshop weekend next weekend. And more news will be coming tomorrow, so be on the lookout on social media. I did not say anything.
What time is next week's VPSA chat?
8 p.m. Eastern, and then 7 p.m. Central. Yes. So,
on Monday? On
Monday, correct. I was never a Boy Scout. I don't know my directions. Okay, so thank you all so much. Have a great night. I'm going to stop embarrassing myself. So thank you all to our panelists.